Hi, do you sometimes feel alone? Well, after this video, you won't. Let's rank most cursed objects with salt shakers. Also, at the end of the video I will give you one neat trick to scare yourself shitless. Let's start this list mildly, with a doll which did not do any harm to anyone. It is located in Japanese Menenji temple and it is guarded by monks. The story goes that 100 years ago a 17-year-old kid purchased a doll for his young 2-year-old sister named Okiku. The little girl loved her doll and pretty much treated her like her companion, taking her whenever she could. Unfortunately, about a year later, Okiku got seriously sick and died. Family members devastated by this loss placed this doll in a house altar to pay respects to their lost child, and soon after, they noticed that this doll started growing hair. They actually had to trim the hair constantly. Later, they donated this doll to temple where this doll keeps growing its hair even till this day. Of course, monks don't let any scientist near it and only gave them a bit of hair that was cut from Okiku. Based on DNA, this hair is of a human child. Also, allegedly this doll is starting to open its mouth filled with human teeth. Of course, I am always skeptical of such stuff, but hell no. If you ended up hiking in England near a village called Alton, you may stumble upon a strange oak tree with chains on it. The legend goes that more than 200 years ago, at dark autumn night, British aristocrat was going to his home, while suddenly an old beggar woman appeared asking for a coin. Rich British guy refused and old hag cursed the guy. She said that for every branch on the old oak tree that fell, a member of the Earls, the rich guy's family, would die. He thought it was a nothing burger and moved on. However, the same night a storm brewed up and one of Oak's branches fell off. One of Earl's family member coincidentally died and the guy got worried. He ordered his servants to chain all Oak's branches to prevent this curse. But this is just a legend, since his future generations didn't die even when the old oak lost some more of his branches. Since it's just an urban myth, I will give this a lower rating of cursed objects. The cursed painting was created by Edwin Landseer, a painter of animals who got insane in later parts of his life. Anyway, the painting in question is called Man Proposes, God Disposes. This painting depicts Franklin's lost expedition, which was a failed expedition to Arctic Circle. The whole expedition is infamous for having 0 survivors out of 128 people. Not only that, some of the crew was never found. So why this painting is cursed? It appears that this painting hangs in Royal Holloway University, which is in London. Since 1930s, every time an exam was taken, this painting was covered with a Union Jack flag. Otherwise, students would fail the exam. Out of this whole ordeal, an urban myth was born. It is said that one student unalived himself after staring too long at the painting, and before that he left a note in his exam paper. The polar bears made me do it. However, there is no records of such student and this is most likely just a legend. If you end up in some obscure England's museum and find a chair hanging on the wall, try control your urge to jump on it with your ass. Apparently, it is hung so high because whoever sits in it will probably die. According to legend, the murderer Thomas Busby, before his execution by hanging in 1702, told everyone at the end that whoever sits in his chair will be cursed. One historian believes that the chair is actually not 300 years old, but around 150, which means that this story is shaky. However, there were some deaths attributed to the people who have sat down on this chair, but people didn't exactly keep track of all the drunks who sat down and got bad luck. I did find some 4+ deaths relating to people who sat in this chair, but if we think logically, if the chair is so old and so many people sat in it, what are the odds that someone actually won't die? Imagine walking your dog and stumbling upon this. Yeah, people found this blindfolded doll in Singapore and weirdly, nobody claimed it. The blindfold on the doll had Arabic word Bismillah, which means in the name of Allah. Somebody with zero fucks given removed the blindfold to reveal doll's eyes. It is believed that this doll was used for a ritual of black magic or simply a prankster. I said that I really not the type who believes that is stuff, but I wouldn't touch it even with a stick from pole vault. Some believe that the owner of the doll put a blindfold so she wouldn't follow him or her back home. Interestingly, the same day this doll was found, near its location, locals also found a guy who unalived himself. Also, what is creepy that this doll is missing right now. It might be next to your door.
How fast will your car go?
Oh, an honest miles an hour. Clocked it run about 106, 7.
James Dean was a famous actor from 1950s. Since the guy was famous actor and had money and liked fast cars, he bought himself Porsche 550. After filming movie named The Giant, James was allowed to race again, so before doing that, he wanted to test drive his new Porsche. He, together with mechanic Rolf Wutterich, went for a drive which ended up tragically. They got into an accident and James died in a hospital while his mechanic Rolf recovered. Now, why do people say that this is a cursed car? How about a list? While in a garage, it is said that little bastard's wreck randomly caught on fire. During unloading of the wreck, it fell and broke mechanic's leg. During the display at the exhibition, car once again fell and broke child's hip. Some of little bastard's parts were later sold. Car which used bastard's suspension parts crashed into the only single train racetrack and driver died instantly. Also, during the same race, another car which used bastard's drivetrain also crashed because its wheels locked up for seemingly no reason. The driver was injured but survived. The drivetrain was later added to another car which later, you guessed it also crashed. Tires from this cursed Porsche were also sold and used in another car, but later both tires simultaneously exploded, almost killing the driver. When flatbed truck was used to transport the wreck for another exhibition, truck driver lost control of his truck, was ejected from his seat and was killed by the wreck of Porsche, who magically got loose from flatbed truck and rolled over the truck driver. Later, another truck driver was killed when he was transporting little bastard wreck. This wreck vanished from the scene later that day. Nobody knows where it is, and even today its location is unknown. Some say that the curse may have been cast by one of James Dean's past lovers. He had plenty. Also, there are many skeptics which say that some stories about the car were fabricated by later owner of the wreck to sell the myth of the curse. The oldest mummy that we know is called the Spirit Cave Mummy, and it is over 9,000 years old. However, it is not well preserved, at least not as well as Utsi, the frozen mummy. It is a mummy of a 45-year-old man which died more than 5,000 years ago when somebody struck his back with an arrow, and the poor guy bled to death. Utsi was discovered in 1991 by 2 German tourists on a high-altitude Alp mountains. The mummy was extracted 3 days later, and Rainer Hen, who touched Utsi with his bare hands, died soon in a car crash on his way to a lecture about his findings. This is just the beginning of strange deaths. The mountaineer who led Rainer Hen, the guy who got in car accident, to the mummy on the mountain, well, he was killed by an avalanche. Next in line was the guy who filmed the extraction of Utsi. He died of brain tumor about few months after he released his documentary. Also, remember the 2 Germans who initially found the body? Well, one of them, Helmut Simon, was found frozen dead in 2004, almost at the same location where Utsi was found. During Simon's funeral, Dieter Werneche, who previously was tasked to find Simon, well, he died of a heart attack. Later, another man who was at the same site died of autoimmune disease after he mocked alleged curse. And lastly, scientist who was investigating DNA samples, well, he also was found dead. But it still can be just a string of coincidences, since many photographers, journalists and scientists which were involved in Utsi case are still alive and in perfect health. I'm not a very superstitious person, but in this case, why not? Apparently, having a copy of this painting is bad, and downloading this picture might give it a curse. Anyway, if you feel brave, you can view it in Wikipedia. I will leave a link somewhere. It started in 1985 when one Yorkshire fireman noticed that many firemen in Britain kept finding copies of these paintings in burned down houses. Not only that, but these copies were seemingly untouched by the fire. This Yorkshire fireman's brother actually had bought the copy to disprove this nonsense, but ironically, his house actually burned down. Not only that, but the picture was intact. Here is the list of stuff that happened when people had this painting in their homes. Woman had her house burned down 6 weeks after she bought the painting. Another woman, Sandra, said that she, her sister, her mother and friend had all suffered fires since buying copies of this picture. A pizza place burned down and it had this picture which, as usual, left intact in the fire. Family home burned down, and the painting for Crying Boy, which was hanging on the wall in the living room, was untouched by the fire. You see, this is a little bit strange, you know? A gas explosion destroyed a house, but two pictures which were hanging on the wall, not sure why did they had to get two of them, maybe to cancel each other. Also, they were in great shape even after the gas explosion. Another woman blamed the picture for a home fire, so she destroyed the picture. Well, her husband and sons died in a fire. Another very similar story. Different woman destroyed the picture after she lost family members in fire. A neighbor helped to destroy friend's picture of a crying boy, and when he returned home, his living room was magically on fire. Firemen at the scene had no explanation how that happened. 67-year-old man's charred body was found. Try to guess what was lying next to his body. Well, of course it was a painting, and it was completely untouched by the fire. Apparently, one of explanations is that this picture was quite popular and widespread. Also, frames with pictures were treated with fire-resistant varnish. Also, during the fire, picture would usually fall down, face down, away from the flames. But the real question is, why the heck? Who the heck would buy a painting of a crying boy, hang it on their wall and be like, yep, seems like a nice decoration. This is legit the most cursed object, and it doesn't even look scary. It is the largest blue diamond in the world and it weighs 9 grams or 0.3 ounces. To understand its price, a 3 times smaller blue diamond fetched sum of $50 million, and since larger diamonds are more rare, its price would increase exponentially. According to the legend, in 16th century this diamond was stolen from a temple in India. Hearing about this, monks placed a curse on anyone owning this diamond. During hundreds of years, this diamond went from one owner to another, leaving them with debts, ruin and extreme misfortune. Prince Ivan Kanitovsky loaned it to Mile Ladu, who was murdered by his sweetheart. Later, Kanitovsky was killed by Russian revolutionists. Nicolas Fouquet, an intendant of France, borrowed it temporarily to wear it but was disgraced and died in prison. Louis XVI and his spouse Marie Antoinette inherited the French blue diamond. Louis XVI was guillotined and his wife met the same fate 9 months later. Marie Louise, Princess of Lamballe, was a member of Marie Antoinette's court and was her closest confidant. She was a temporary wearer of the cursed diamond and died soon after. Jacques Collet bought the Hope diamond from Simon Frankel and unalived himself. Sultan Hamid gave it to a jeweler to polish it, but later the jeweler was imprisoned and tortured. Stone guardian Kulub Bey was hanged by a mob in Turkey. Another Turkish guy who was attendant was hanged for having it in his possession. Simon Moncharitz was a Greek merchant who owned the diamond and resold it in 1910 to Pierre Cartier. Simon drove his car over a cliff together with his wife and a kid. Interestingly, Pierre Cartier had this diamond for 2 years and nothing happened to him. Maybe he treated the diamond with respect because later a rich noblewoman bought the diamond from him and allegedly made a dog collar out of it. And you don't do that because it's, well, the most cursed object. What happened was her husband left her and he went insane. Her mother-in-law died, her daughter died, her son also died. Not only that, the noblewoman was left in huge debts in later of her life. Jeweler William Falls, who recut that stone for the second time, well, he died being a ruined man. His son, Hendrik, stole the jewel from his father and later, well, he unalived himself. Some years later it was sold to Francis, who died in misery. Finally, series of bad luck ended with a mailman who was delivering the diamond to Smithsonian Museum. He got in his car accidentally and his house burned down. Today this diamond still sits in Smithsonian Institution, Washington DC. I found a video where jewelers actually handled the stone and seemingly looked okay. Maybe this curse affects people who own it. Maybe it's just a string of coincidences that follow greedy people and their actions in life are in fact the reason for their misfortune. So here we are. You feel unease, I feel unease. The job was quite successful. Well, if you don't, maybe this will help. Listen, I have a trick. For this trick you need 3 things. A candle, a mirror and your face. Do this in the evening when the room which has a mirror is dark. Light the candle, put it near the mirror and simply look at your reflection right between your eyes. Don't move your eyes away. Keep it at it for about 10 minutes and you will start seeing stuff. I promise you. Before you freak out, this phenomenon is called strange face illusion. It's perfectly natural. Similar effect can quickly be achieved. If you look at this red dot, you will see faces contort.